Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to our channel. Grab a cup of coffee or tea and let's dive into today's video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. It's a simple gesture that would be immensely helpful, and your subscription means a lot to us. Knowing that you're a part of our community motivates us to put the hard work into creating these videos. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into today's video. I recently became the victim of my wife's infidelity 2 years ago, and it totally destroyed my family. I'm a 31-year-old male, and my wife is a 27-year-old. For this, I will refer to my wife as Deidre, and to myself as Dave. We have 2 kids, a daughter aged 4 and a son aged 2. I'll call them Sammy and Timmy. We got married nearly 6 years ago. I'm not going to get specific about my line of work, but let's just say I have a good job. My wife and I met in her final semester of college, and we got married 13 months later. She followed me to the East Coast, where I worked for 4 years, and where our kids were born. Earlier in the year, I was given a promotional opportunity to run one of our offices located within 15 minutes of both our hometowns. Deidre and I were excited to move back home, especially after having kids, and our parents were overjoyed. Both my parents and her mother still live in the area, as does my younger brother. Deidre's dad passed away before I met her. Our families were of course excited to have the 2 of us back home, but we're really excited about being able to see their grandkids on the regular. As things worked out, my mom and dad had recently moved into a new home in a 55-plus community, and were planning to keep our family home and rent it out for income. Our family home is a historic structure, and is just a beautiful place, sitting on over 3 acres of land with a small creek flowing through the wooded lot on the back of the property. Instead of buying a house, Deidre and I decided to move into the family home and pay rent to my mom and dad. My parents want to keep the home in the family and pass it down to me and my brother, and they'd like us to do the same. My parents and brother didn't want the rent money, but I insisted since my dad recently retired and was counting on the rent money for income. Paying them rent was like paying myself anyway, since my parents are leaving everything to me and my little brother. Okay, like I said, this house is very special to my family, and my parents treated it with great TLC over the years. But there were a few things that needed done after we moved in. Since it is a historic home, it has unique fixtures and features that require specialization. My parents have been working with a local contracting company for the past 35 years who has done nearly all the major repair work on the house. One of their specialties is working on older homes, and they do a great job. So anyway, they're getting a list of projects together. I called them and got an estimate. The owner came out and walked around the house with me. He's a great man and has built a great company. If you look at the reviews for this place online, they've got like an 82% 5-star rating, 16% 4 stars, and that's out of nearly 700 reviews. Most companies like this have review scores that average in the 3 range if they're lucky, so that tells you something about this outfit. A couple weeks after getting the estimate, the company started the repairs. They moved quickly and always had the project area cleaned up at the end of the day. My wife and I were very pleased with their work and professionalism. The work was primarily done by 3 of their craftsmen, but one guy in particular completed most of the projects on our home. Let's call him Brock for this posting. Brock was a very personable and polite guy that was about my age. My daughter referred to Brock as the window man, as she saw him through our second-story windows while he was working out on the ladder. All repairs were completed on time, and we were now settled in at the house. My wife and kids loved the place, and I loved my new job. Everything was going well, until I had an innocent conversation with my daughter. My wife had gone shopping with her mom, and my mom and I was watching the kids. We were playing out back, and my daughter was running all over the place, and when she got tired, she jumped up on my lap. We were just talking generally, and then, out of the blue, she looked at me and said, "I saw Mommy napping with the window man." Now, before we go any further, let me state my daughter is a highly gifted child. I know all parents feel that way about their kids, but with her is true. She is highly gifted. Everyone who meets her immediately recognizes it. Her doctors recognized it, and we had her tested before we moved, and she scored one of the highest scores the clinic had ever seen for a 4-year-old. So I knew what she was telling me was very likely factual, although there was a possibility this could have been something she made up, as she does have a remarkable imagination. I was shocked, and asked her to repeat it, and she told me the same thing she just said. I asked her to tell me what happened and how she saw them. She said my wife put Timmy and her down for their afternoon nap. Sammy said Timmy dropped his binky behind his bed and was crying for her to get it, but she couldn't reach it. So she went looking for her mom. I asked her if she called Mommy, and she said no. She said she walked over to our bedroom door and opened it, and then called Mommy. I asked her what she saw, and she said Mommy jumped up out of bed with a blanket wrapped around her, and ran over and kissed her, and then took her by the hand to get the binky and to tuck them back in. I said, "Where did you see the window man?" She said he was lying on Daddy's side of the bed. Hearing this hurt so bad, but I didn't want to show emotion. So I said he was. She said yes. I then asked her what happened next. She said Mommy left their bedroom, and I heard her talking with the window man and they went outside. I asked her what she did next. Sammy said she got up and looked out the window and saw him driving his truck down the driveway. I gave her a big kiss and thanked her for telling me. She then said something that really broke me. She said Mommy told her to shh. Let's keep this our secret. Oh, I asked her what she said back to Mommy, and she said I told Mommy. Okay. Again, my little girl was smart and somehow she sensed what she saw wasn't right. Again, I didn't want her to be upset. So I made light of the situation and said, "Thank you so much for telling me. I'm so proud of you. Now this can be our secret." "Okay," she said. "Okay. I won't tell Mommy. I told you." Then she said, "Daddy, don't tell Mommy." I told you, and I told her there's no way this is our secret. I then tickled her to break the mood, and we started laughing and talking about something else. I could tell the secret my wife asked her to keep was really upsetting my daughter, and after telling me, I think she felt relieved. My wife came home with our moms in tow and she summoned me to come inside with her, while our moms went out on the back porch to watch Sammy and Timmy. When I got outside, my wife showed me a gift she bought for Sammy. It was a gift Sammy picked out for her birthday, which is not until October. I asked why she bought it now, and she said she wanted to give it to her now. This was surprising as Sammy wasn't asking about this gift, and was not expecting it until her birthday. Also, my wife and I have a clear understanding with Sammy of when she will get large gifts. She knows it's only on her birthday and Christmas, and she accepts this, and like I said, she has never mentioned the gift again since she chose it a couple months ago. My wife justified the purchase saying she's such a great kid, and has been so good lately, I wanted to reward her. I hope you're not mad. I told her I wasn't mad, but I immediately sensed this was a bribe of sorts for Sammy to keep my wife's secret. My wife gave Sammy the gift. Sammy was concerned and said, "I wasn't supposed to get this until my birthday." "What am I going to get then?" Dider told Sammy, "You've been such a good girl, Mommy and Daddy want to give you this now." Sammy surprisingly said, "No, I want to keep it until my birthday. I don't want it now." My wife kept coaxing her to open it, but Sammy didn't want to and looked at me for backing. I spoke up and told Sammy, "Let's take this upstairs and put it in your closet." My wife was stunned by Sammy's reaction, but it didn't surprise me. Like I said, she's very smart and she didn't want that gift until her birthday. We took the gift upstairs to her closet, and she seemed relieved and not have to open it. When Sammy and I came back downstairs, my dad and brother had arrived, so we spent the rest of the day eating and enjoying family time. I was going through the motions and having fun with my family, but my mind was preoccupied with what Sammy told me. Later that night, I was going to confront my wife, but decided not to, since if what Sammy said was true, my wife would likely deny it. Instead, I told my wife I needed to wake up early Sunday morning to do some work for my company using our home computer. She was fine with this, and asked if I wanted her to get up with me to keep me company, and I told her no. When I woke up, I did a complete check on our home computer, and there was nothing. Then I went on her phone and entered her password, and again nothing. I thought to myself, did Sammy make this whole thing up? She could have, but her details were too descriptive not to be true. The rest of the day we spent over at my parents' visiting with my aunt and uncle who had flown in from out of town. I hadn't seen them in over 2 years, so it was good to visit with them, and to introduce them to Timmy, who they had not yet met. We had a great day and everything appeared to be normal with Deidre. She was her ever-loving self and showed no signs of anything. I returned to work on Monday, but the thought of what Sammy told me was still on my mind. So several times during the day, I drove over past my home to alleviate my suspicion. I did the same thing on Tuesday, and then again on Wednesday. There was nothing, but I just had a strong feeling Sammy was right. I thought of hiring a private investigator, but instead, I decided to buy a camera system at Best Buy. I installed the camera system when Deidre and Sammy were out attending an evening event at our local nature center, and I was home watching Timmy. I placed the camera outside near the garage looking down the driveway, a second camera in the living room, and the third camera in our master bedroom. I placed each camera where they could not be seen unless your eyes somehow stumbled upon them. I was concerned, however, that my wife may notice the camera in our bedroom. Though it was up on the crown molding and completely blended in, as our crown molding is white with black trim, it was in sight if you were laying on your back looking straight at it. I turned the system on when I left for work every day and turned it off before I arrived home. Since my wife and kids don't spend much time in the living room, our bedroom, or on the driveway during the day, they did not set the cameras off much. When the cameras are triggered, I receive a text alert. Everything was normal until the following Tuesday at 1:46 p.m. when I got an alert from the driveway unit. When I checked, I saw a truck from the contracting company coming up the drive. I then saw Brock get out, walk up to my front door, open it, and go in. I'd next got an alert from the living room camera, and there I saw my wife kissing Brock. Worst fears confirmed. Sammy was right. With this, I rushed out to my car and started heading toward my house. On the way, I called my mom and told her what was happening and asked her to meet me at my house as soon as possible. My brother, aunt, and uncle were also there, and I told her to bring them. On the way over, I spoke with them on the phone. By this time, I had gotten an alert from the bedroom and knew what was likely happening there. I was really upset but held it together, giving instructions to my family. I told my mom and aunt I wanted them to take the children outside when I confronted Deidre. I then asked my uncle and brother if they could accompany me in my bedroom when I confronted Deidre. I explained I wanted them as witnesses and to prevent me from doing something violent. They readily agreed. We parked on the driveway down from the house, blocking Brock's truck in, and walked up to the front door. The door was unlocked, and we all entered the house. Our bedroom is on the back of the house, so there was no chance the cheaters saw or heard us approaching. I led the way with my brother and uncle right behind me and my mom and aunt behind him. The noise from the bedroom drowned out any noise we were making walking up the stairs and down the hall to the bedroom. My heart was beating out of my chest at this point. I motioned for my mom and aunt to go past us to the kids' room. I then looked at my uncle and brother and asked if they were ready, and they nodded yes, and with that I opened the door and walked in. My wife screamed, "Oh no! Oh my God!" And with that, Brock dismounted and fell back on the floor, started apologizing and reaching for his clothes. I had my phone out and was filming and said nothing. I just stood there in silence, moving my phone camera back and forth. Brock continued apologizing and getting dressed, while my wife had the sheets pulled up to her face and was crying, saying, "This wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean to hurt you, Dave. I love you so much. I'm so sorry." After a couple minutes, Brock was fully dressed and sat on the floor with his hands covering his face and was continuing to apologize while my wife kept crying and apologizing. I told Brock to get the F out and he quickly left. Before leaving, I told him, "Don't think about taking your truck. We have it blocked in, and I will be calling the company to come and pick it up." I then called my mother-in-law and explained to her what just happened and told her to come over and pick up her daughter. My wife was still laying in the bed under the covers pleading with me not to make her go. I ignored her. My mother-in-law arrived shortly thereafter, and when she did, my uncle, brother, and I left the bedroom. I then heard my mother-in-law yelling at my wife as she sobbed. To my surprise, my wife left the house without incident. When she left, she rushed out with her head down crying and didn't say anything. I think she was in a total state of shock and was also highly embarrassed. My mother-in-law apologized to me, gave me a big hug and kiss, and told me she loved me. After they left, I went out back to see my kids and then called the contracting company. After I explained the reason for my call, they put me through to the owner's cell phone. He apologized profusely and said he would see to it that his company did everything they could to make this up to me. I thanked him and ended the call. About an hour later, the company dropped by with someone to pick up the truck. Brock was nowhere in sight. The following Monday, I took the day off and met with a lawyer to start divorce proceedings. I also secured an attorney from the same firm to handle the situation with the contracting company. While I respect the owner and the company he's built, I want to receive some level of compensation for the damage their employee inflicted on me and my family. From that day, I didn't speak a word to my wife. She's called and texted me nonstop, apologizing, baiting forgiveness, and asking me for a second chance, but that's not happening. Against the advice of my attorney, I've moved all my wife's stuff out and had my brother and a friend of his take it to her mother's house. The way I got things working was that my wife and her mom come to my house at 6:30 a.m. Her mom comes in and my wife waits in the car until I leave for the office. Then she goes in. I work until 5 o'clock and then head out to grab dinner at a restaurant, and then come home at 6:30 p.m. My wife and her mother have dinner with the kids before I arrive back home. When I'm about 5 minutes out from the house, I call my mother-in-law to advise her. My wife then goes out to the car while her mom stays in the house with the kids. When I arrive, I ignore my wife sitting in the car and go straight in the house. I usually talk to my mother-in-law for a few minutes to recap the day before she leaves. I then spend the next 12 hours with my kids and repeat this cycle 7 days a week. I know this may seem extreme to some, but I wanted nothing to do with my wife. If I could, I would have banned her from ever seeing my kids again, but I know that wasn't happening. I had extreme anger for what she did to me. The fact she had a strange man in my bed while my kids were in the next room, then instructed my daughter to lie for her. That is beyond forgiveness to me. I instructed my lawyer to go for full custody, but she said we would not get it, but we do have a shot of getting 50-50 custody, with my home being designated as the child's primary home. My wife continued to have the mindset that she was going to win me back somehow, and kept coming up with new things to offer me, thinking that will sway me. She came up with the idea that I could have a one-sided open relationship with as many partners as I wanted, but she would still remain faithful and would sign up post-nup agreement with those stipulations. She started seeing a therapist 3 times a week and had her mom convinced that she went temporarily insane for a couple weeks, and that was why she cheated. This is a crock of BS. Of course, she knew exactly what she was doing. I have since ribbed that the claim of temporary insanity is a ploy women sometimes use to try to excuse their cheating. I didn't buy any of that and I didn't speak a word to her. My mother-in-law asked me several times if there was any way I could forgive and reconcile with her daughter. I loved my mother-in-law and didn't want to get into a discussion with her, so I just told her that I could not. As for the idea of my wife being sorry, I do believe she was sorry. Sorry for herself, that is, and sorry she got caught. I think in her twisted mind, she thought betting Brock was okay as long as she did not let our relationship suffer. She had the nerve to send me an email explaining how even during the affair, she always gave me 100% of herself, including 100% of her body. As time went, I remained focused on getting divorced as quickly as possible. She grew more and more desperate as she tried daily to talk to me, but I only communicated via email and only about our children. When she brought the subject of our relationship, I simply replied each time that our marriage was over and that we will only have a co-parenting relationship. Well, fast forwarded a few months later and I finally divorced Deidre. The process, however, was much more difficult than anticipated and was filled with trauma, which delayed the final proceedings. My mother-in-law told me that she started talking about ending it all and saying if she didn't have me, she wouldn't want to live. My mother-in-law asked if I could speak to her, and I resisted, but eventually met with her in the presence of my mother-in-law and my mother. In the meeting, Deidre elaborated on how starty she was and told me everything she was willing to do for me if I just give her a chance. She kept asking me to just give her 6 months so she could prove herself. I let her go on until she was talked out, and when she was finished, I told her that I no longer see her as a romantic partner and was not interested in any form of reconciliation, even if it was just for one day. After this meeting, her mom told me she became deeply depressed and stopped going out of the house. In fact, my mother-in-law would come over at 6:30 a.m. when I left for work. She would dress the kids and fix them their breakfast, then take them back to her house to be with Deidre. She said Deidre was withdrawn from them and spent most of the day in her room crying and pining for me. My daughter noticed and asked me why Marnie was crying all the time. This was very upsetting to her and to my son Timmy, although he is young enough where he doesn't notice as much. I explained to Sammy that Marnie and I are living in separate houses now. I told her that Timmy and I are living in our house, and Marnie is living with Grammy. After I explained this, she was okay. Her primary fear was that she would be moving to Grammy's house, too. She loves her Grammy and her mom, of course, but I think she loves me more. She was worried about moving out of our house and leaving me in her room and the creek where she likes to play. I told her that would never happen. After hearing this, she was fine. The drama with Deidre didn't stop there, though. As the date for our final divorce hearing grew closer, Deidre became more desperate and was calling and texting me multiple times per day while I was working, reiterating all the things she will do for me and how I would be the happiest man in the world if I'd stay with her, and she promised me that. I'm paraphrasing now, but you get the picture. Well, the day before the hearing, I got a call from my mother-in-law informing me that Deidre was rushed to the hospital by ambulance. They thought she was having a heart attack. She was admitted and tests were run. In the end, it was determined that she was suffering from severe dehydration. Her mom told me she hadn't eaten anything for the past 3 days, but said she was drinking water. Apparently, she wasn't and got severely dehydrated. I think she did this purposely to delay the final divorce hearing. Well, her shenanigans worked as the hearing was delayed until after the first month of the year, then was delayed again due to weather. Finally, in early March, the hearing took place, and I was granted a divorce. Overall, I think I made it pretty well, all things considered. We are in an at-fault state, and I have video proof of Deidre's cheating. The videos were not necessary, though, as Deidre and her attorney gave a full written confession to the judge. In terms of the division of assets, I ended up keeping nearly 63% as the judge allowed me to retain everything I've brought into the marriage. Even so, Deidre ended up getting $71,000 from me as well as child support, but no alimony. Like I said, I made out pretty well, but the idea of paying child support to her just burns me. We split custody 50-50 with my home being the primary home. I'm paying my 50% and also paying her 50%? How is this fair? Shouldn't she have to contribute? The court system seems to be totally rigged against fathers. So that's where we are today. We still have the same 6:30 a.m. to 6:23 p.m. arrangement 7 days a week, and it's working well, especially for my kids as they get to see both parents every day. I'm back on speaking terms with my ex, but only about our children. If she asks me how I'm doing, I just redirect her and say let's keep it to the kids. Now, to answer a question I've gotten from many respondents here. Have I told anyone else of the conversation I had with Sammy where she told me mommy was napping with a window man? The answer is no, and I don't plan to. At least not any time in the foreseeable future. I promised Sammy that was our secret, and that it will remain. As for Sammy, I may end up telling her in 20 or 30 years, but for now, I hope she has completely forgotten whatever she saw. She has never mentioned it to me again, and seems as active and happy as ever, so I don't plan on discussing it with her again. That's the end of my story. Not a happy ending, but just about as good as you can get considering the circumstances. Dave, thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Until next time, I'll see you again. Take care.